do the interview before it gets
Because I'm going to ask you some hard stuff.
So that's right. You might ask me some hard stuff.
Well, I'm going to.
We can do something
After, yeah, I'd love to. So.
Yeah, who you will.
We Are Change.
What?
We Are Change.
We Are Change?
Yep. It's a group. It's grassroots journalists. I go out and educate the people and ask the politicians hard questions, or the runners up. And
I don't think you have any hard questions.
Sure?
I'm positive.
Okay.
Just wait.
They should all be pretty clear.
You'll see. You'll see.
Honesty is always the best route, with how people are, and there's not too much honesty in the politicians nowadays.
That's because I'm not a politician. I'm not going to give you a political answer.
But look, you got a good down-to-earth bio anyway, You're for the people, and...
No, we'll do it after.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
You will please stand and place your hand on your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
State chair of students.
Okay.
And I'm one of the 5 main people in Iowa. I'm the only one that's unpaid here, so I'm a volunteer.
Oh, my name is Krista Branch.
And I'm Paul Ruark.
Try to gather as much intel as I can from the people, what they think. And you guys are both entertainers in the music industry. And what do you guys feel about what's going on in our country?
I don't think you have any hard questions.
The path we are on leads to rapid destruction of America, and maybe, possibly, even to its extinction. I know this man can put America back on the path of greatness again. Won't you please help me welcome 2012 presidential candidate, a good friend of mine, Mr. Herman Cain.
Delighted to be here, but I am more delighted that you are here because that means that you care about the future of this country like I do. 235 years ago, they developed a great concept called the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. When they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
I don't think you have any hard questions for me.
Participation in financing as far as UN.
The United Nations, I believe that we need to change some of the rules in terms of our participation in the United Nations. I don't believe that we need to get out, but I think that we need to change some of the rules. The way the United Nations is set up and it operates, there are some discretionary programs that we have funded if we think that they're going to be successful. Humanitarian aid, some of the conditions in some of the countries around the world. Those programs are working well. Then you have the, quote, mandatory programs to help fund like the overhead and all of that kind of stuff. Well, sometimes that's not working too well, because they have this one country, one vote rule when we're paying 35% of the cost. So I don't think that's exactly a fair deal for us.
I don't think you have any hard questions for me.
Yes, sir.
I think that you are a breath of fresh air that you're coming out. But my question, even though we celebrate your business background,
Yes.
it's fantastic. I am intrigued by your economic background, former head of the Federal Reserve Kansas City branch. And I'm wondering, just out of curiosity, we look at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, for example, a lot of people like to get into partisan politics, but I think what role does the Federal Reserve have in events like those bubbles that are built up? And do you have any idea, for example, who the shareholders are of the Federal Reserve trading, just based on your experience?
The shareholders of the Federal Reserve are the member banks. And about 70% of all of the banks in the country are members of the Federal Reserve. So that's who owns the Federal Reserve. It's not like one big bank or one family, anything like that. About 70% or so of its member banks, and banks can choose to become a member of the Federal Reserve System. Secondly, the actions of the Federal Reserve today are nothing like the actions of the Federal Reserve when I was on the board back in the 1990s, and here's why. The Federal Reserve's mission was expanded in the 70s. And when I was on the board, we never had to try to control unemployment and inflation, monetary stability. We only had one objective, price stability. The reason that we didn't have to worry about that other one is because we didn't have a $14 trillion debt. We didn't have an economy that wasn't growing. And so this Federal Reserve has chosen to do some things that the Federal Reserve under Alan Greenspan never would have done that. Some people believe that we should end the Fed. I believe that we can fix the Fed by narrowing their focus back to the original focus, and they do very well being what I call the financial monetary air traffic controller. I would get rid of the Fed simply because it's like getting rid of the air traffic control system and you're going to have airplanes flying around running into one another. I believe in the system, we just need to fix it. And the way we fix it is we re-narrow the focus, and I already know who I want to put in charge of it.
When we hear lawmakers talk about immigration, why don't they also talk about the correlation between the war on drugs? I mean, because for example, if you stay in Mexico, you'll be trying to get out of there too, with drug cartels basically running that country.
Right. I don't know why they don't always talk about it in the same breath. They're not sure how they want to talk about it, but you're absolutely right. I also believe that there are more things that we should be doing as it relates to drugs and drug cartels in Mexico. But there again, I got to talk to the people who know more about this particular situation before I know how we fit that into our overall strategy. But you're absolutely right. Yes, sir.
One of the previous statements you had made me kind of change what my initial question was, but I think we can look to history to flesh out the problems that we've had and we've conquered, and it seems like we now have again. And I think maybe I differ with you in one respect as far as your solutions goes, but I do respect your leadership abilities and everything. And mainly what I got to say is quote driven, because like I said, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, and I think you can appreciate that being a CEO. So I'm just going to have a statement and somewhat of a solution that's generally quote driven here. Thomas Jefferson stated that if the American people ever allow the private banks to control the issue of currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of property until their children wake up homeless on the continent that their fathers conquered. Now, we can see, if we look towards history, Andrew Jackson didn't just balance the deficit, he got rid of debt completely, and he did so by completely abolishing the central banking system of the time. Given the fact that the Federal Reserve Bank consists of a board of governors who are unelected, should we not institute the solution that Andrew Jackson implemented, and by the words of Thomas Jefferson, again in another quote, I believe the banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. Already they have raised up a moneyed aristocracy that has set the government at defiance. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs.
That sounds good, and that's a nice quote, but it's not that easy for the following reasons. Number one, we got off track because of two reasons. One is when I mentioned that the Federal Reserve has a dual responsibility. That's like trying to hit two targets with one arrow with money supply. You can't do that. Secondly, when we got off the gold standard, I would much rather favor moving back toward the gold standard. But you can't do that until we pay down the debt. We got to pay down the debt. So we have got to move back in that direction. So if you were to just walk in one day and say, okay, we'll eliminate the Federal Reserve, and we got a $14 trillion debt. And one of the guiding economic principles is measurements must be dependable. We would have chaos. The other thing that's different from when Thomas Jefferson wrote that statement, we now live in a global economy. We live in a global financial system. We now live in a global economy. We live in a global financial system. We now live in a global economy. We live in a global financial system. So it's not that easy to just yank out the Federal Reserve and think that everything's going to be all right. Now, here's one other point that I would challenge you on, okay? And that is, they are not elected. They are appointed by the president and confirmed by the United States Congress. The United States Congress already has oversight over the Federal Reserve. They simply, at times, are not doing their job, okay? And the American people are not that stupid.
I don't think you have any hard questions for me. I don't think you have any hard questions for me.
Hey, Herman. How you doing, Sean Wright? We are Change. Can I start off here right away? First question, of course, there's been a lot of reports, especially coming from groups like the Council on Foreign Relations, kind of endorsing your whole campaign and things. Are you for government involvement on such groups like Council on Foreign Relations or Bilderberg groups? Do you think politicians should be involved with backdoor dealings?
With what?
With backdoor dealings?
No, not with backdoor dealings. If that's what it is, I'm not exactly sure.
Are you sure? Because you've got to be familiar with the Council on Foreign Relations.
I'm familiar with the term Council on Foreign Relations, but I'm not familiar with their agenda. I'm not familiar with their agenda. Okay.
Because from the research that's out there, the Council on Foreign Relations was put up.
Let me repeat. I'm not familiar with their agenda. I know you're familiar with research, so I don't shoot from the lip.
Okay, but you're for transparency. I mean, you seem like you're
for transparency. Okay. Yeah.
You have 5 minutes.
I'm for transparency. Yes, but I'm not familiar with their agenda. Okay.
I don't think you have any hard questions.
What do you think the main message of this whole next presidential race is based on?
The main message for the president, for all candidates, is the economy, because we know how horrible it is.
Now, personally, do you think some of our problem with our whole economy and our country right now is the Constitution's being violated?
That is a part of it, yes, because a lot of legislation is being passed without it going through the judicial system. That's just the way the checks and balances have been working so far, and it's just not working.
Yeah.
As you can see from today, for example, the Dow Jones has gone down even further.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Me, I think it kind of says it in my song. I think that the Founding Fathers got it right in the Constitution. We've strayed away from that in a lot of different ways, and we need to get back to that, otherwise the country is not going to do well. I mean, that is, my song is pretty much about that.
Yeah, I see it's just continuing to go down the road that we don't want to go down and end up where we don't want to be. So we got to do something.